I'm Lou, and if you're anything like me, you probably struggle with animating yourself with focus, and you might have something approximating ADD, ADHD. I've learned some tricks that work for me that I'd like to share with you. At the end of this video, I'll share an unfortunate reality that we have to discuss and face as well. Let's get into the first story and what I've learned from it. The first thing I want to cover is a trick that I figured out in desperation and necessity that I happen to carry forward inside of life that really changed the way that I'm able to handle continuous workflow and new things coming up. And so I'm in an industry that requires that variable things may be coming in over the course of a day, and they may need to have different priorities that need to get addressed in that. What ended up happening was that I had a really dense day, and I was completely incapable of focusing and remembering everything that I needed to get done. And so what I did is I grabbed a white piece of printer paper, just a blank page, and made a little bullet and just dumped everything that I had stuck in my head in that moment onto the piece of paper in bullet points that were anywhere from 3 to 8 words, not writing out a whole task or a whole project or anything of this nature. And I just, one after the next in a stream of consciousness, put down everything that I could think of that I had to do. Okay. And what this did is it took me from the first position on this side, where we have the balls of yarn, right? Okay, so what this is it's a bunch of individual and unique different topics and things that are going on inside of life all the time that we have to manage, right? Our different roles and responsibilities, maybe it's different workflow things inside of an office or employee or something, right? And what ends up happening is that though we might be able to kind of parse these things out into individual or quantified things like these balls of yarn, the issue is that we never really unravel it and straighten it out to lay out what an attack option is at actually tackling the things. And so what I would do is, again, this bullet point system, what ends up happening is that you get a bunch of things on a list that you do end up needing to do, but then okay, now there's a big task that I'm not energetic enough or capable enough to really take on at the moment, or I just can't focus enough, I'm a little bit too tired, or I need to eat or whatever, right? What you end up doing is, if you write down 10 things that you know that you need to do inside of the span of this, you can then quickly browse this list, and then it's oh, what is the easiest thing that I can do on this list, or what is the thing that is most approachable for me to hit right now? And then you do it, and you put a little check through it. And every time you're doing this, this is gamifying your moment-to-moment life in a way of oh yeah, these are mini quests that you are just checking off on a continuous basis, and it is way more rewarding, and it also quantifies down what the task is. And so let's say that you have a few different things going on, and in this list you don't immediately write down a small quantifiable thing, right? So let's pick a long task or something, you need to rearrange your garage, for example. So you put a dot on the paper that says rearrange garage. This is something that's rolling over in your head as you're going to sleep at night, that yeah, this is an obligation I should be fulfilling. Okay. From there, what you can do is that you then, when you come back to this list, an hour later, a day later, or whatever it is, you can then add a few bullet points. And the answer is, okay, first, make a walkway in the garage. That becomes the new bullet point, and then it's okay, I'm going to make enough space so that I can walk in from my garage from the street and into the house. That would already be a good enough first step in this, right? And then it's get bins, right? Or get shelves, or sort things to side of garage. And it's you're getting rid of the junk, right? And what you do is you make these smaller and smaller tasks. And I'm going to get into this later into the video. But this bullet point system makes it so that you can just pick up and take away small tasks to then go re-engage with. Because looking at a whole project of like, oh, I got to rearrange the garage. It feels like that's going to be like an entire Saturday type of project or something of this. Maybe it's longer than that, right? No, like tackle smaller things, and like these bullet points make it so that you can look at and prioritize what's actually in front of you, and you stop forgetting to do things. Like that's so useful because you know your brain is scattered. It's just running on to the next project, running on to the next thing that you got to do. So the bullet points are super useful for that. Moving, like this was the point that I was getting at. Like moving goalposts a little bit closer and frequent breaks is like something that is really, really big for like if you're dealing with ADD or ADHD, or like just like a tough time with retaining attention at tasks, right? And like some tasks are mind numbing and suck to do, and that is like really you telling like it's you understanding that like, yeah, I don't want to do this thing because it's not implicitly rewarding, right? But like some of these things are very necessary. And so when we're looking at like these types of task works, right, over on the left side of the screen here, I've got this picture of a bunch of rulers. Let's say that you have like a project. I'll just keep banging on this like straightening up your garage type of thing, right? It's a big, kind of longer task, right? Let's presume you have a very kind of decluttered garage, right? Instead of it being this very long task, like in this example, right? We have a bunch of smaller rulers. Okay, so then you quantify it into smaller, easier, and more attainable tasks, and then you take the wins, like the small wins, as you're making progress through the task. And so break it up. The other one is this, like, okay, on the right side of the screen, I have this coffee, right? Okay. If you have something to take you away from the project, you're going to be able to come back into it probably a little bit more focused if you're like me. And so like I can lock in and like give full attention and effort for something approximating maybe about an hour at a time. And then like I will start to slip. I'll start to become less efficient. I'll start to do more poorly. And so like a good thing is the coffee break in the first place. And I'm going to get into some of the other ramifications of coffee later. But let's say that like you're also trying to be conscientious about like the amount of caffeine you're intaking or something, right? You replace it with a tea or whatever. But like get a smaller cup and like go refill that cup more frequently, for example. Like just break it up and take small wins on a more continuous basis. And I have a small image of the mouse here, and this is a kind of famous experiment where like if you put a mouse in a cage and you hook up a wire to its like dopamine producing system and give it a button that says that like, hey, hit the button and you get dopamine. If you give it no other forms of entertainment inside of the cage, it will just sit there and press the button, and it will get so accustomed to pressing the button that it will actually forsake eating and drinking at that point in time. Now, if it's given other rats to interact with and other things to play with, it is far less inclined to go seek this. And so this is one of those things where like, okay, this type of like small continuous like reward system that we use as like what would be functionally a mammal is what leads to addictive behavior. And what we need to do is, one, combat it, and I'm going to get into some of the pitfalls of this in the very next section. And then two, like understand that you can also play off of this system by giving yourself repeated small rewards that are actually going to make it more likely for you to go engage with the thing. And so like this type of, coffee break, smaller tasks plays on what is like our understanding of the dopamine system in order to get us to find these things more rewarding. And like ultimately you get the big thing done, which is like a really big reward, and like improves your conscientiousness overall when you can start taking on bigger tasks and accomplishing them. So this comes into like the negative relationships with tech, okay? This is probably what has caused pretty much every millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha to have the types of problems that I have. You know, and it's like the older generation will be like, yeah, it's the kids in their video games or whatever. And it's like, it's them in their television too. Like, they watch Fox News and CNN, and they get into like the rage bait cycle all the same, right? So like, it's not a unique thing to our generation, but like our exposure to it for those that are like under 40 is so much greater, because like if you're like me, you know, summer break came around when you were in like middle school or elementary school or whatever it was, and it was like I was like kind of the last bit of like outside kid type of thing where like it was mandatory in elementary school, because like we didn't have in like Super Nintendo wasn't like engaging for more than like a couple hours or something. This is probably dating me, right? But then like when N64 came out, it's like, oh yeah, I can play Super Mario 64 for like a 10-hour streak as a, you know, whatever year old. And then, you know, with the advent of PC gaming, and now like all of the like big title companies are now like also hiring gambling experts and like addiction experts in order to like force people into spending more money and spending more time on the platform. And then like you look at things like social media and how that's changed from the early days, where it was just like, yeah, there was a little bit of a weird feedback loop that was like impersonal and like kind of short-circuited what it meant to like be kind of human and like seek human review and feedback. But like now that's completely changed into like this algorithmic hellscape that is set up so that it is just to keep you on and retained and looking at the screen as much as possible, and to get you to spend as much money as possible. And again, this is all done through like addiction experts. And so the issue is that like we're exposed to what is like an advanced casino from like childhood, and most people are just like not equipped to be able to deal with that. And like despite the best efforts of parents and like their best intentions, like they had a lack of knowledge or information that like these things would be damaging to us in the long term if we didn't engage with them in a healthy manner. And so whether it be like video gaming or like television shows, like if you can, you know, Netflix and like zone out for like 4 hours, it's like that's a problem, right? Like it's not a natural state for us to be so complacent for such a long period of time. Like it's antithetical to what is like the basics of all of the human experience throughout our existence as like peoples. So acknowledge that like something is going wrong there, and then that's probably contributing to like what it is that we're doing. And so like, for example, like I have a shorts playlist on this channel, and the tagline on it is "Get off of shorts, it causes brain rot," right? And I've been there, and like I'm late to this game as well, right? Like shorts and TikTok were not like a part of me growing up. And so like I look at the guys that I know that are like 18 to 21 now, and their amount of screen time on apps like TikTok or YouTube Shorts is astounding to me. And like I get to the other end of like a 45-minute just like absolute black hole of engaging with this type of content. I can't remember a single thing that came up. There was like 2 videos that I liked inside of the whole thing, and like maybe one I clicked share on. And it's like, oh wait, like I just fried this type of like search mechanism algorithm. I'm not actually searching out things or like content that is engaging for me. I'm completely surrendering agency to some type of like automatic algorithm that's trying to guess at the thing that's going to make it so that like my hellscape short black hole is going to last 45 minutes instead of 40. Like that is what they're optimizing for. And this decimates our ability to like take on, even like a short term or like a medium term task, because everything's happening to us now in like 60-second increments or 90-second increments. And like that, it sucks. And this is like perhaps what is like producing in us like this inability to focus a lot of the time is the engagement with this content. And so like I've had a very negative relationship with tech. Like when I was a kid, I played like 12 hours of video games a day, plus, right, when I was on like summer vacation or something of that nature. When I was an adult, like a functioning friggin' adult, I would like, I'd work, let's say it's a 9-to-5 job. I get home at like 5:30 and I would play 5 hours of ESO or old school RuneScape or like some other type of dumb game, and mainly like MMO stuff. And it was like, but I was functioning, like I had my own place, I like had my own responsibilities, I took care of myself, and yet like I was still putting in like 5 hours a day to something that was like wholly unproductive. Like, and nobody cares how like that I had 99 fishing. Like it did not matter. like I could have been doing things that were like contributing to my well-being in that time frame. I could have, instead of numbing myself on a continuous basis by like engaging with this content, I could have been educating myself. I could have been doing something that was like edifying or like good for me or good for others, right? And so that's where like I encourage you drastically, like the less that you engage with tech, the more you start to reset into like from a very short horizon, constantly seeking numbing, to something that is going to approximate like a want, like a will comes back to you when you stop engaging with this. And it's a super bizarre thing to experience, because I just thought that I was lazy. I just thought that I was like incapable of these things. And it's like, no, the longer that I spend not on social media, not perpetually like staring at a screen watching on YouTube, and this is also kind of the reason why I'm aiming to switch towards like a little bit of a longer format, is that like it's better to just like throw an AirPod in or like a headset and listen to something while you're doing something else that's actually like good or productive, like rather than just like consuming like Subway Surfer, GTA 5 car rolling down half pipe like brain rot stuff on shorts. Like stop. And when you do, and it's like fast, right? Like just make it so that you don't do that. There's apps on your phone that you can get for this. A little bit of your own research will go a long way on this, but like the one that I used to like start the process was Screen Zen. And then after some period of time, like I stopped having to use the app quite so much. And there's like people that make full videos on this, and like I encourage you, like how to reduce screen time. Like it starts to make you more present for like the people around you. And at some point, like maybe I'll do like a really a deep dive on like, do you really care video, where it's like, when's the last time you called your mother? Like, when's the last time you called your best bud and like just really genuinely asked, like, how are you doing? Like you forsake all of these like good things all the time to like just rot. And so avoid the negative relationships with tech. Like use tech in the manner that is going to be like good and building for you and edifying in some way. From here, like I want to talk about playing to advantages, and I mentioned this in like the last segment. So on the left side here, we have a guy wearing headphones. Okay, so like I have a difficult time focusing in absentia of any other type of stimulation, and again, it's because of this like hyper stimulation that I experienced as like a kid growing up, and then like as an adult, and always looking for something that was going to like fill my head or entertain me. Okay, this is not good. Like you need to, it is so much better that you develop the ability to like sit with yourself and be with yourself and start to reflect. And like that's kind of the part of the reason that the channel is what it is that like over time I have begun to develop this, and it is from acknowledging the other shortcomings that I'm facing. And so I need to acknowledge where I sometimes will fall short in this. And so like my daily thing is that like I have a YouTube Premium, which allows you to like queue up a handful of videos. And so in the morning, like I'll queue up maybe, I don't know, something like 4 hours worth of like podcasts or something of this nature. And then I can just click play and pause on the AirPod whenever I have like idle time or I'm not like immediately engaging with somebody. But like none of it is material that like perhaps I'm taking in quite so much, but it allows me to maybe learn some things over the course of the day while I'm filling out some paperwork or while I'm doing some chores around the house or whatever it may be. And so this is a form of stimulation for me. Another is like a very basic, like, let's say it's like a lo-fi track in the background or something of that nature. Just something to keep like a little bit of like activity going where your brain is working, because like that idleness can be like so crushing when you're not used to it. And so when you're first starting out, like I encourage you to move away from like an active screen time, like paying attention to something, to listen to something on like a longer form that's going to stop you from like actually removing your capacity to like look at and focus on the thing in front of you, and then you start to taper back and away from this. But like, yeah, the best times that I'm doing like locking in is that I'm listening to like some decent music, maybe some lo-fi, or like a good conversation or something of that nature, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that like I just spent 2 hours straightening up the entire house because like I was so into that thing, but like mechanically I was moving, right? So that's really useful. To go into like a specific story thing, on the right side of the screen here, this is an example of like a bunch of clip arts of a guy running around doing a bunch of different like handyman work or chores, right? Because like the focus can suck, right? Like early on, and this is something that like you can train to get better at, which is like a really cool thing that like it you can get better, okay? But like one advantage that you have presently with like this type of like bouncing around thing is that small task work is like way more rewarding. So like if, for example, I need to straighten up like around my house downstairs or upstairs or something of this nature, it's like, okay, I got to put the pillow back in like the position that it needs to be on the couch. I have to like fold the blanket. I should be, you know, cleaning like the placemats off of the table. I should be like throwing away like odds and ends type of trash that's accumulated. I could like sweep the kitchen. I could like clean a grate on the stove, whatever it is. It's like a bunch of these like really minor tasks, like the idea of straighten up the entire downstairs sucks, right? But it's like as I'm walking around, it's like the moment that I see a thing, I just move and do a thing. And like what I've discovered is that like that's actually a little bit atypical. Like a lot of other people that I know look at full tasks, and especially like within my family, they look at a full task as like something that is like maybe a little bit more difficult to accomplish. And so I actually am like way more efficient at something like the straighten everything up into like acceptable order type of task, because it's like this bouncing around type of thing is really, really good for me. And so like play to your strengths, like use that type of like bouncing around thing where it's like, oh yeah, like I see a thing, I do a thing, like see a thing, do a thing over and over again. And like that, it really does become like a lot more rewarding. And then at the end of it, you realize that like, oh yeah, I'm capable of taking on like a big long task if I just keep attacking the thing that's like immediately in front of me. So it's like a distinct advantage coming from that mindset. Now, one, I'm not a doctor, and like the whole, you know, disclosure thing and whatever else, right? But like I have logic and reason. You do too, and like you can probably discern when like your attention span is so poor that like, yeah, if you walked into a doctor's office, like they might tell you that like you've got something wrong with you relative to like what would have been the standard, you know, 30 years ago or something. Okay. So like self-diagnosis, like it's not like I recommend it, but like a reality is that like most people kind of have an idea of what their problem is, and then they just like live with it rather than seeking like pathology and like medical advice for it. And so it's like, okay, acknowledge realities about yourself. You don't need some expert to tell you that, like, yeah, you're kind of bad at this thing, or like whatever, right? Like, if you know it about yourself, like, accept it. Like, don't wait for a diagnosis to like start taking action that like might improve what your situation is. And like, don't do anything that's like crazy without seeking like some type of advice, right? But the controversial part of this is self-medicating. And what I like, it's such a difficult subject, because I think that like when I get into a deep conversation with like every man that I've ever known, they self-medicate in some way, like nearly universally. And they deal with some type of like problem, whether it be chronic pain or a lack of, let's say, attention, like what we're dealing with here, or if it is like social anxieties or whatever, right? It's like the number of them that are like on some type of prescription that are honest about it is far fewer than the number that are going to self-medicate, okay? And I use this, drugs are bad, okay, like the South Park reference, because it's like, I'm not going to tell you that like you should be self-medicating in any way, right? But like, a lot of people have a vice that they turn to in order to make it so that like their life is a little bit more approachable, okay? And so like, is coffee that thing for you? Well, then that's like probably one of the best case scenarios, right? And like, to be frank and honest, what it is that's like helps most with this is some type of stimulants, right? So like, let's say that you went down a course of like going to a doctor, getting like pathologized and shrank and whatever else, and then they tell you at the other end of it that it's like, yeah, your attention sucks, right? Because like you were taught to like be an addict from when you were an 8-year-old on like, YouTube Shorts or TikTok. So like, here is a stimulant, and the answer is like almost universally it's just going to be like Adderall, right? And what is Adderall? Adderall is just like, it's the clinical name for like the nerfed version of like a much harder street drug, okay? And so what we're doing is that we're saying that like, okay, like we only have so many vectors that we understand and like have done medical research on in order to like tackle this like inability for you to focus, right? Here's a stimulant, kid, right? Okay. So then like you start taking the stimulant, you've got a prescription for it, and then you become like reliant on it, right? And I went through college, like I have some experience with this. And so like stimulants are useful and good for fixing this, but like coffee or tea is like an earlier approach than that, right? And then like if that develops to be insufficient, it's like, well, seek proper help rather than like choosing to self-medicate in like more, let's say, like dire or drastic ways. And there's certain things that like I could never encourage in a video as something to use, but like sometimes that stimulation like from a stimulant is the thing that is needed to get you out of like what is the flight response in a fight or flight that like is the usual culprit of this. And so like I want to talk in detail. So like there's a link here, or it'll be in the description. And there's this Dr. Erica Komisar that was on Diary of a CEO. And like the title sucks, it's like a little bit clickbaity, and like it takes a little while to get to like some of the punchlines. But like watch that whole video or like listen to it, right? Because this was like very eye-opening for me, in that what it is that like you're dealing with a fight or flight response, and like oftentimes this can also be caused by like a trauma response, but like without that necessarily, right? And there's like, it covers like different ways of like attachment issues and how they develop and how they can play into like attention and want and ability to do things. But what she goes over is that this fight or flight response is actually like ADD, ADHD is typically the answer is that like you get a little bit stuck in this fight or flight, and specifically in the flight thing. So like it makes you way less inclined to actually like get up and go engage with the work and go do the thing. And overcoming that can be really, really useful. And so like as a personal tip on this thing, like when I'm kind of stuck in this, like, you know, let's say like a malaise of like not wanting to take action, like this is going back to shortening that horizon and like moving the goalpost a little bit closer. It's like, if you can't think of, you know, like I've got to clear the lane in the garage for the straightening up, right? It's like, okay, I can't even get myself to stand up out of this chair at the moment to start moving in that direction to gain the momentum to it. Like, what is, I will actually shorten in my mind like the window down to, I need to tense my leg right now. And that is the thing that is going to lead to me standing up, and then I'm putting one foot in front of the other while I move towards the garage to then pick up the first thing. Like, sometimes it is that finite of processing that becomes necessary. And so the punchline of this is that like there's improvement, and you can start tackling in a great and meaningful way, like building on your capacity to be able to like go engage with things, to be less forgetful, to be more active, to like increase your will and your drive and your want. Like, be careful along the way. But like, again, I really highly recommend that like if you're unsure about this on your own end, like this video was really uncanny for me. So check that out, link down in the description for that. I hope you found that useful. Relative to a small channel, last video like really took off, and it was awesome to see. So like, hello and thank you to the new subscribers. It's awesome. There's another video here you might find useful. Like and subscribe. I'm still at that stage where like every subscriber is pretty much a new milestone for me. So again, any questions or anything that you might have, I'm happy to engage in the comments. Feel free to leave it below. All right, thanks. Be well.